What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you an update to Dark World involving the brand new card, Clorless. Now this is a card that came out in the brand new Maze of Millennia, and luckily it is only a super rare, so it's nice and easy and cheap to pick up. At the end of the video, I will also show you a combo of how you directly get into this guy, setting it up during your opponent's turn for a complete board wipe, which is really nice. If you want to see more from this video, like a test stand video as well, make sure you get the video above 50 likes in the first 24 hours and I will bring that for you. But with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the profile, starting off with a pretty staple lineup. Of course, we are playing triple Rainbow over King of Dark World. Now, unfortunately, this requires specifically Overlord of the Dark World, Rainbow, which means you do need to play the old card. Sad, but it does look pretty cool, aren't we? I'll talk about that later on because there are other alternatives that you can play, and I'll explain why I'm not playing them. So carrying on with the staple lineup, triple Genta, triple Snow, all straightforward and simple on this one, and then double Greffer. Now this is where I've changed it up a little bit for this particular build. Now for this particular build, I'm going with my old strategy or my current strategy of playing the Quokimiru Guardian to kind of help me deal with Droll and being my main normal summon of the deck. I'll also show you a side deck at the end of the video as well so you can kind of see what I'm working with. But if you don't want to use the Quokimiru Guardian, your other options are Gen and Ken. And then your final option, which will also allow you to substitute in an alternative option for your Rainbow Overlord of the Dark World, is the Tour Guide into the Visago. Now the reason I'm not playing either of those, the Ken and again and that one, is because with Tour Guide, your route of play is normally ideally trying to get into Gossip Shadow. When you get into Gossip Shadow, it then means that you need to activate its effect to put Visago into the graveyard in order to set up your colourless play for during your opponent's turn. So it's very unreliable to actually act as a substitute unless you're going to link it off and then you don't get the protection you need. So throughout loads and loads of testing, the Quokimiru Guardian has been the most consistent and the most protective against all forms of hand traps. Now, yes, of course, you can play Ken and Gen, but as soon as you play Gen into Ken and you do discard and draw, you can then get hit by Droll nice and easily. And what I was finding more times than not was Gen and Ken were being hit with Ashes and Imperms, which a lot of the rest of the deck don't really need to worry about. And that's why when you set up the Quokimiru Guardian at the start of your combo, you know everything from that point on is relatively protected, and it's very difficult for your opponent to stop you. Yes, they could go Ash Blossom, and you'll go, right, okay, cool, Quokimiru Guardian to negate, and then the next search you do will be in Droll parameters. Or, of course, they can try and use Imperm, but you would have activated Quokimiru Guardian prior to that. And the only downside is Quokimiru won't stay on the board for the end phase, but you just link it off or XYZ it off. Another change for this particular version is double Ceruli. Ceruli is actually quite important to get the combo working for the colourless. There are other cards that you can play, like you can play Lucian in the deck, but I didn't want to summon another Ceruli to my opponent's side of the board to trigger another discard, because then it required me to have an additional discard in the hand to get the most out of the Ceruli. There's loads of different plays you can make, and it is entirely up to you on how you want to change this. If you're going to put in the Ken and Gen, that's where you would take out the one Ceruli because you're basically covering the job that the Ceruli would do. But having two is absolutely fine in this build, and you'll see more so with the combo at the end of the video. Of course, we've got the one OG Rainbow Overlord of Dark World. The best thing about this is this can also act as a Raigeki off of the back of your Greffer Dragon Overlord or a Harpy's Feather Duster. So the idea is at the end of the combo, what you're going to do is you're going to end up with a Greffer Dragon of the Overlord, plus you're going to also end up with the ability to summon colourless. You can either have this card in your hand or you'll have it in the graveyard depending on what else you have. So it gives you the ability to discard a card off of this, Raigeki or Harpy's Feather Duster your opponent, and if they're able to continue to play, you then can summon into colourless and then destroy their entire board, and then the next turn you're going to be able to push for an OTK quite nicely and easily. But again, you'll see that in the combo. It's a shame that this doesn't have the same effect as Greffer or the same effect as the new Rainbow, where it can bounce a lower level back to the hand to summon itself back to the board. Otherwise, that would be really cool. The other downside is sadly it's a level 7, not a level 8, so it doesn't even really help when it does get on the board. But there are ways where it can be quite useful. In the place of this, I've also cut the one gold because the gold was a nice way of being able to destroy two. Whereas more times than not, when I was discarding gold, I was ideally wanting to discard it off of the Ceruli or the back of the Greffer Fusion, and that would then give me a pop 2, whereas this can be a complete pop of either all back row or all front row. Still playing the 1 silver, your main strategy is still going to be the hand loop if you're going first. What the addition of rainbow and colours do give you though, is they give you a great fusion option to completely wipe your opponent's board and then build off of the back of that. So that's it for the Dark Worlds. Moving on to the dangers. Double Nessie, double Mothman, single Bigfoot, and a single Jackalope, alongside an honorary danger in the form of the Salamander Catalyzer. Now you can make this engine bigger or smaller if you want to. You could cut the Bigfoot. I quite like the option of if I do end up discarding Jackalope, I can get another level 8 to the board if I want it. You could also play a third Nessie, but I feel multiple Nessies can be pretty dangerous. No pun intended on that one. You could also consider playing Chupacabra. There's another cool option to play. But for me, like, this ratio has kind of worked out nicely. Like, I only really want to be seeing one of them in my hand at any one time. Seeing multiples can be a little bit annoying, but it works out for me. And then, of course, my normal summon of the day is the Quakumiru Guardian, as I mentioned before. So the way I kind of saw this was, like I said, with the issue with the tour guide, yes, it allows you to swap out the original Rainbow for the Visago the Destroyer, but it's still the same brick, just Visago isn't searchable, which is fine. But the idea is you'd still need to go normal summon tour guide, not get hit by an Ash, an Imperm, or a Veiler, to then summon out the Visago, to then link it off, which doesn't even give you droll protection from that point. You'll then want to overlay both of them to go into Gossip Shadow, meaning that you need to use Gossip Shadow's effect in order to put the Visago to the graveyard, otherwise it's stuck as a material under the Gossip Shadow, and you're not going to be able to get into your colours in the first place. With the Ken and Gen, of course, you are just constantly getting hit with hand traps off the back of those, whereas Quakumiru Guardian doesn't have that issue, and it does provide a very nice deterrent on the board. I'll skip ahead a little bit just to kind of show you my other counter for Droll and Lockbird, and that is Instant Fusion. Yes, it does take up a space in the extra deck, but these were, in my opinion, the 4 best single cards on their own that allowed you to protect from Droll and Lockbird. Now, whether you're going second, whether you're going first, Droll and Lockbird is still a massive issue for this deck. If I go first, I want to see Quakumiru Guardian or Instant Fusion. Otherwise, my then resolution becomes, if I do get drolled, I need to make sure that my route of play that I still have available to me is going to be able to set up either a Bagooska protection or some other form of protective play. Another way to deal with Droll is being able to hard open a session and then be able to get into the Greffa, but that requires you to specifically open up a session and specifically open up Greffa, whereas either one of these, I just need to open up one copy of it. If I do get into more Quakumiru Guardians later on down the line, I can leave one on the board, reveal the second one in the hand to keep this on the board during my opponent's turn. Instant Fusion, once Millennium Eyes Restrict, or once you get to a position, the idea is that you're going to link them off and go into Appaloosa. So you'll basically turn the ability of Quakumiru and Millennium Eyes into a Appaloosa, and that's going to give you the same level of defense that you're going to need to deal with any particular type of hand traps, including Nib as well. So carrying on to the rest of the spells, I am now playing 2 Allure of Darkness. I'm just trying this out to see how I feel. I just kind of felt it was a draw card that I could use when I didn't have anything else in my hand. Now obviously it's a little bit risky because you'd be banishing whatever you would draw, but you'd still get that one fresh draw, which if it ends up being something like a Dark Corridor, you're able to pretty much continue to make your plays from that point forward. Other options of this one can very easily be trading. You could play Drag Down to the Grave, and this kind of circles back to the Quakumiru Guardian. The issue that I always found with Drag Down to the Grave is, again, there's no... Like, if I put Quakumiru Guardian down, I know I can 100% deal with Droll. If I activate Drag Down to the Grave, yes, I get to see my opponent's entire hand. If they have Droll, obviously I'm going to rip it away. But if they don't have Droll, and they draw into Droll, I'm still in the same position. I'm still going to get battered by that one Droll. It also means that I needed to have a hand where I wanted whatever I revealed to be discarded, and even if there were multiple cards I would want to be discarded, my opponent would then choose the least effective for me. So it never really gave me the full control that I wanted. Exactly the same with Dark World Dealings. As great as it is, again, the issue becomes, I'm giving my opponent a draw. I'm giving my opponent some advantage. If they have a card that will get them more benefits by being discarded to the grave, then even worse. Whereas the law was fully within my control, and it gave me the ability to activate it with the least additional cards in the hand. In this version, I've upped the Dark Corridor to 2. I'm going to see how this works. There are times where you will draw into the second one, but then you can hold it back. And in place of this, I did swap the Frost down to 1. Again, I'm not entirely set on it as of yet. I do like the idea of having 2 Frosts in the main deck. You'll see that the other Frosts are in the side deck. And the reason I like having Frost in the main deck is it gives you that option to, when you get to the side that you'll have even more options, but then Frost also counts as, like, Corridor will only ever be Corridor, whereas Frost, quite like the Family Guy meme, can become Frost, Triple Tactic Talents, Card Destruction, Law, Corridor, so, and even Instant Fusion. So you've got loads of different targets on that one. So I'm trying this out at 2. If I don't like it, I'll go back to 2 Frost, but entirely up to you. 2 Gate, I've already said my feelings on this one are perfectly clear. The only benefit to ever having 3 is if you're able to get Genta back to the hand multiple times, which more times than not, when you're working with a minimalized hand, you're going to go the first Genta to get you Gate, activate the first Gate, banish the Genta, discard a Dark World. Ideally, it's going to be Rainbow or Greffer. Genta's going to come back to the board. You're going to bounce that Genta back to the hand. You're then going to discard it to the graveyard, get you the second Gate, and then ultimately you'll probably end up banishing that Genta if you haven't got anything else to banish. So you're not going to be able to bring it back to the hand for the second time. The only benefit for a third Gate is if I then draw into a second Genta before I get to that Gate. It also helps if you hard open a Gate, you then still have 2 more copies in it, but if you hard open a Gate without a way of getting a Dark World to the graveyard, it's completely dead. So 2 have worked perfectly fine for me. That's personally where I'm keeping it. Another card that I've actually upped in this version is the Dark World Accession. Now, yes, you can recycle it from the graveyard, which is absolutely fine, and we are only playing 2 targets. However, what I liked about the Accession and bumping it up to 2 was if I see it, great, that's one less card that I need to search. But it's also one of them cards that you don't ever really want to set because you're not going to be able to activate it that turn. So if you're going to set it, you know you're not going to get into your defensive Greffer, which can be a bit of an issue. If you've got like Hand of Dangers or Danger and Accession, you want to set it. Whereas by having 2, what it gives you the ability for is it gives you that ability that if you do open up a Danger, you can activate the Danger and don't care about discarding the Accession because then you have the ability to search out the second one. And the reason for that is, the first one, you're ideally wanting to activate this, get into your Greffer Dragon Overlord, and then you want to use its graveyard effect to discard a card to add it back so you can then set it to activate this. Whereas if I've had to discard this off of a Danger, and then have to use its discard to add it back, I'm only going to be able to get into the Greffer Fusion, I'm not going to be able to get into my Colourless. Whereas if I do it in that exact same example, I still have the option to search out a second copy of Accession. Another card that is also gone into the deck now is Dark World Puppetry. This is great in the Fire King matchup, just being able to target 3 cards in any graveyard, banish them, discard a Fiend, nice, get a plus off the back of that. And on top of that as well, during the main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you get to banish this card from the graveyard, then target 1 of your banished Fiend monsters and add it to your hand. The best thing about Accession as well, when you're thinking about Colourless, is Colourless requires specifically Rainbow and then 2 Fiends. Now that's the sad thing about having to use the original Rainbow is there's no way to produce a chain off the back of that. Like if it was new Rainbow, you could go chain it 1 Colourless, chain it 2 Rainbow for a search. However, because it does require 2 Fiends, it means the 2 Fiends that you discard off the back of Colourless can then become your chain blocks for Colourless's ability to nuke the entire board. And then of course we've got the 1 Archives, and then our Triple Tactics Frost targets of obviously Frost, getting into Card Destruction, getting into Talents. And if you want to play a second Talents, you can. I'm personally trying out a main deck of Eradicator. And this is just one of them ones that if I do get drolled, but I have Frost, I can either look at my, if my opponent doesn't have a monster, I can't Talents, because I can Talents set it, but I'm not going to be able to look at my opponent's hand. Whereas more times than not, for example, if you went discard the Genta, but you're able to get a Rainbow or a Greffer to the graveyard, there are times when you can get the Genta back to the hand, bring back... So for example, let's say there's a very specific scenario. Let's say you had Allure of Darkness, Triple Tactics Frost, and then Genta and the Field Spell, or another Dark World card, right? So let's say, basically the idea is you would activate a Dark World card or have a Dark World card in play, activate Allure, banish Genta, draw 2 cards, your opponent drolls you, Genta will still come back because you'll control that Dark World card, and then you could activate, as long as you can get a Greffer or a Rainbow to the graveyard, you can activate Frost, set the Eradicator, and you still have a way to crack back. It's not perfect, which is why it's a up to you. This can be 1 additional slot. This can be a second Frost, a second Talent, or you could play something like a Beige, a third Cerulli if you wanted to, or even Lucian. You've got a lot of flexibility to play it around with. I'm just trying to show you different versions and different variants that you can try out to see what works for you. This is just something that I wanted to try out in this version. If I feel that I'm going to adapt it to go second, then you'd probably consider taking out the Quacky Mirror Guardians, you'd main deck Lava Golems. I would then consider playing more trade-ins just so you have more draw power on that account, and then I'll probably focus on Colourless's board wipe and then push for an OTK more times than not. So that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. So we'll start off with the brand new card, Colourless. So if this card is fusion summoned, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. This card's original attack and defense each become the number of materials used for its summon times 1,000. Now it requires rainbow plus 2 or more fiend monsters. What you have to remember is a session lets you banish those monsters from the graveyard if you want to, but it can also allow you to discard them from the hands. You can make this a fat stack boss monster if you want to. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can target a face-up card you control, discard 1 card as effect. Also, your opponent cannot target that face-up card with card effects for the rest of the turn. So again, it's a nice ability that should your opponent try to imperm this card, you can protect it, as well as the ability to chain block it. So you're in a very good position. And then, of course, we've got the one Greffard Dragon Overlord. Now, I have considered a second one of this, and I'm going to show you some options for the 15th card at the end of this kind of section, so you can kind of see what I'm torn between. The one Millennium Eyes is pretty straightforward on that one. I've got the one Daguerres, the one number 90 Galaxy Eyes, and the one Sky Star Slayer Typhoon. I did consider the Buzz King. I am considering. That's the brand new card that also came out in Maze. The only benefit that that card really provides, in my opinion, is if you are Fiend Lock. So what it does is it's a generic rank 8 Fiend Dark. It gives you the ability that if it is XYZ summoned, you get to look at your opponent's extra deck and then rip 1 card from it. On top of that as well, it has an effect where it can destroy one of your opponent's monsters and then your opponent takes burn damage equal to that monster's attack. However, that is not a quick effect. So the only time that you'd ever really want to do that is if you Fiend Lock yourself and then you don't want to be link climbing any higher or leave any more of your monsters on the board. If you do put them under the Buzz King as material, it will give you a little bit of an issue because more times than not, when you're trying to make Buzz King, you're going to be using stuff like Greffard and you're going to be using stuff like Rainbow. So I did decide to go with these. There are some other rank 8s I'll show you at the end of the video as well. Oh, and also massive shout out Sleeve Chief on this one. So you can see that I've got the Dark World over sleeves. So I'll tell you what, I might actually do a giveaway for some of these if we get enough likes on the video. I'll do it in the test down video. So there you go. Something extra if you've been watching closely and paying attention. So for the Link monsters, Akashi really like this to loot back a Ceruli. Cross Sheep. Now, all of the cards I'm going to show you, Cross Sheep could be flexible if you want to, but there has been a couple of times where making Cross Sheep and then producing a fusion monster to then trigger its effect to bring a card back is actually been really important because what you've got to remember is as soon as you bring any Dark World back, unless a level 4 or lower, you're usually going to be bouncing that back with a Rainbow and then bouncing the Rainbow back with a Greffard. So you're just going to regain your own resource. Muckracker is actually really important in this deck now, even more so, just because it gives you that ability to, and you'll see this, it gives you another discard outlet to trigger more effects, which will hopefully, or more times than not, help you set up your colourless play as well. IP Masquerena into SP Little Knight just is what it is, broken as busted. Appaloosa, you're defensive. You'll see that a lot of my Link monsters, or pretty much all my Link monsters, are defensive, or ways of drawing into more cards, and that's purely because I feel the aggression will come from the fusions and then just the natural boss monster elements of the main deck. One Saryuja, and then of course the one Underworld Goddess. You can take the Underworld Goddess out if you want to, but this is actually really good if you are Fiend Locked, so that can help you. So that's it for the main extra deck. So that's only 14 cards. I'm going to show you the other cards that are options for your 15th card. So you have Buzz King, which is the brand new one. You've got Zombie Vampire. I think it's rare that you're going to make rank 8s in this particular version because you've only got Rainbow, Greffard, and Bigfoot. But there are an option for an extender if you want it. You've got Garunix, which annoyingly is like a slightly better Rainbow because it's a lot easier to make and it will nuke your opponent's front row. But it does nuke all of your cards, so, you know, benefits. If you're not worried about creating another monster effect in the form of your Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, another really good option is your Hope Harbinger, because you would actually then, the idea would be you'd have Appaloosa, Hope Harbinger, so you're dealing with monster effects and then spells, and then the idea is that the only benefit of, at that point, making this is because Appaloosa is once per chain. So you would go, cool, Appaloosa, and then they try, like, negate it with another monster effect. You can go, okay, cool, Galaxy Eyes. So So that's another option for you. And then of course you've got Baguska if you really are worried about it, but I felt that I wasn't really producing loads of rank 4s in this deck because your only level 4s are beige if you decided to play it, but then it's mainly going to be your Kokimura Guardian, which ideally you don't want to be making Daguerreas unless you're absolutely desperate with it, Snow, Genta, and then your Salamander and Mothman. So, but it is an option. It's a very nice defensive option. And then the second Greffa, but the way I saw this is you'd make your first Greffa, and then during your opponent's turn, rather than making a second Greffa, because obviously it's a hard once per turn effect, you're probably going to make Colourless. So the idea is you'd make your Greffa, and if they Dark Ruler you, you go, okay, whatever, let them build up a board, and then you make your Colourless and completely clear their board off anyway. So it's kind of why I felt I didn't desperately need a second one of this. Okay, I know this video is going to be a long video, but I wanted to go in as much depth as possible to kind of give you everything you could possibly need. Moving on to the extra deck, so for the monsters, Lava Golem, like, this card's insane in this deck. You don't need to rely on your normal summon at all, and then Lava Golem in your opponent. The only downside is you give a fire monster to your opponent if they're playing Fire Kings, but I would like to think you wouldn't really be putting this in against Fire Kings because there's not really anything you're that fearful of, like their end board. I don't even think like a Snake Eyes end board is that powerful. I feel like most of their effects are coming from their back row or their hand. Draw and Lockbird, best Floodgate hand trap right now outside of Shifter. Back row hate in the form of Cosmic Cyclones. And then I'm playing the second Triple Tactics Thrust alongside a single copy of Dark Ruler, Duster, Lightning Storm, D-Barrier, and Evenly. This is just to show you a range. If you go to a local environment or you're going to the whatever environment you want to take it to and you're like, D-Barrier is not, like, no one's going to need, don't need to worry about that at all, take D-Barrier out. You can then bump up a Lightning Storm, you bump up an Evenly Match, you can bump up a Thrust. It's entirely up to you on how you'd want to do this. I'm just showing you a range of what you could do to cover all of your bases with everything you could possibly need. And then obviously Cosmic Cyclone are, of course, Cosmic Cyclones. If you do start flexing this extra deck around, you also have Nibiru's. Now, Nibiru's are great at local level right now, unless your local level is playing the main meta in the form of Rescue Ace, Labyrinths, and everything else like that, because they play under Nib. But if you're going to a local environment where everyone's playing Fire Kings, or they don't worry about Nib as much and they kind of run into it a bit, then Nib is a great option for you. Something I have been noticing a lot from some tops around the place is that a lot of people are playing Heroes and everything like that, and Heroes are a great matchup or a great deck for the current meta when you're looking at like Bestials and everything else. And the reason they get so successful, or they're doing quite well, is I also noticed a lot of people are not even considering playing Nibiru. So it gives decks like that have no way to stop against Nibiru free reign, which is really kind of cool. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to show you the combo to get you started and how you can get into your rainbow as well. Okay, so this combo will also net you 2 random draws. So parts of this combo can be replaced with that. It can also be replaced with Dark Corridor. There are other cards that can help you fill this hand out. And like I said, with Dangers and Dark Worlds combining, there's never a dedicated outcome. You don't want to stick to a strict route of combo that is going to be your start to end combo. More times than not, as I've shown you in separate videos, it's like, okay, cool, this is my resource combo, this is my draw combo. This is going to be the combo that will specifically get you Greffa Dragon Overlord Fusion and Colourless Fusion. Colourless come in during your opponent's turn while netting you 2 additional cards. Keep in mind, you'll also have 2 more cards in your hand anyway. So yeah. So we're going to start off with, of course, Genta. This is not going to be droll proof, but if I did open out a Kokimura Guardian or an Instant Fusion, it would be, which is exactly the same with any kind of test hand with Dark Worlds. So you discard the Genta. Your Genta, of course, will then search you out your Gate of the Dark World. You'd activate the Gate of the Dark World, and then you're going to use Gate's effect to banish the Genta, and you're going to discard the Ceruli, specifically on this one. So this is the route of play that I could figure out that gave you the most advantage and the most resource in order to get to Rainbow. Through more and more testing, I might find other ways to do so, but you'll see that in test hands anyway. So then this one will net you a random draw. You will then be able to go chaining 1 Ceruli, chain it to Genta. Genta will come back to your board. Ceruli will go to your opponent's board, and Ceruli will make you discard Rainbow. So as Rainbow has been discarded by your opponent's card effect, this will allow you to add a level 5 or higher, and you're going to want to go for Greffa, and it will let you summon a level 4, or lower specifically. So we're going to summon Snow. Now if you want to rip from your opponent's hand, by all means you could summon out a Ceruli, but the idea of this, and you'll see this, is we're going to loop resource, we're going to draw additional cards, and we're going to work our way through to get all of the individual pieces to produce both fusions. So you're going to return the Genta to the hand for your rainbow. And then what you do here is you're going to use Genta's effect again, and this is going to allow you to get into a second gate. Now, of course, if you really, really wanted to, you could go into a Casting Magician, you could bounce this here, but you want the snow back in the hand because snow is going to be one of your important discards in order to complete your route to colourless during your opponent's turn. So you're going to activate the second gate, you're going to use Gate's effect, you're going to discard the Genta, and then, of course, banish the Genta and discard the Grepher. You'll draw a new random card, and of course it is a mandatory trigger of Grepher to destroy the Ceruli, so you clear this off of their board. If there is a way to keep the Ceruli on the board, it's actually quite useful because it means you don't need to worry about Lightning Storm, Evenly, or an Imperm during your opponent's turn, which is kind of cool. So what you do here is you're going to return Snow to the hand, and of course you're going to bring back your Grepher. And then what you need to do is you need to link these two together, and you're going to go into your Muckcracker, which is why this is quite important. Now, like I said, when you're utilising dangers and everything else, keeping in mind that your starting hand will still have 2 more cards, you've pretty much got to this point with the ability of refreshing everything you need to. So what we're going to do here is we're then going to use Muckcracker's effect. This will allow you to target one in the graveyard, and the one you're going to want to target is, of course, your Rainbow, and then you're going to discard your Snow. In doing so, you discard the Snow, you revive the Rainbow, you're going to trigger Snow's effect, and this is going to allow you to grab your Accession. At this point here, what you want to do is you want to return the Rainbow to the hand and bring back the Grepher. We're then going to activate the Accession. Accession will then allow us to banish the Grepher and discard the Rainbow. And this will then allow you to fuse into your first Grepher Dragon Overlord. There we go. And then you're going to resolve the Rainbow, allowing you to search out a level 5 or higher. And you're going to want to go for the OG Rainbow. Now, obviously, if at any point of this you've had a danger and able to get Rainbow to the graveyard, if you want to keep Rainbow in the hand because you want to discard it off the back of the Grepher Dragon Overlord first, you can do it. It just depends on what these additional 4 cards are. I'm going with base minimum. You do not know exactly what these are, and we're going to work it from that point. So Accession is now in the graveyard. You need to get Accession back, so you're going to use this effect to discard the Rainbow because it's the only card guaranteed we know we have. And this is going to allow you to get the Accession back, and you're going to set this. You're going to pass your opponent's turn. During your opponent's turn, when you want to clear off their entire board, you're going to want to activate your Accession. And again, depending on what you have in the hand, these can become discards to help fuel the colourless. But just for the base minimum, it will be a banish. So you're going to want to banish your Rainbow. You want to banish your Ceruli, and you're probably going to want to banish the Snow, to be completely honest, because at least you know the Rainbow in the graveyard can loop itself back. If you wanted to buff this up to a 4K, you could banish that Rainbow as well, and then you know you've got the strongest colourless on the board with exactly everything we've walked through. Like I said, if you have additional dangers or anything else to extend, a little bit different. But this one would then be a 4K base. This is a 32 base. Plus the 300 off the back of the Gate of the Dark World. And then, of course, you've got your Muckcracker at 1300. This would have obviously nuked all your opponent's board. You've still got 4 more cards to protect with this. You've got the ability to discard and protect this or this from targeting as well. Not to mention your draw for turn. Plus, if any of these are Dark Worlds, you can actually discard one of them to recycle the Accession again during your next turn. And that's probably where you would want to consider a second Grepher Dragon. But I feel that in this particular moment in time, you don't need to worry about it. Anyway, that is it for the entire combo. Like I said, that is just a direct route. This is how you're able to get everything. I'm not saying it's the best route, but as of now, if you ask me what do I need to start with in order to get to this and this, that's probably the best way of doing it. Of course, a simple normal summon of Tour Guide summon out Visago, and then a route to get to your Accession will still get you, like Accession and Rainbow will still get you to colourless. Sorry, not even Rainbow. Accession through Snow will still get you to colourless, but again, that Visago needs to go to the graveyard. And if you're going to put a Visago to the graveyard, you're not really leaving yourself with anything else. But you'll see more how consistent this can be when we get to the test down video. You'll see just how many different types of route of play you'll go through to make colourless if you want to. I feel it's definitely a nice one-off because it is an aggressive option. It gives you that ability to break boards while you've also got the ability to protect boards as well with your Grepher. So I think it could definitely have been better, no argument on that one, but it's still a really kind of cool card to have for the deck, and it's one of them ones at 50p I'm definitely going to be playing. And it doesn't really need me to change the deck a huge amount, but adding in the 1 Rainbow brick to the main deck, which is a big sad, but part and part of it, I'm afraid. Anyway, Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been as in-depth as possible and giving you all of the lowdowns for the main deck, the extra deck, the side deck, and the combo as well. If you want to see that test down video, then make sure you get this video above 50 likes. If we get enough likes in the first 24 hours, I'll also do a giveaway for a set of these Dark World oversleeves as well for your own extra deck. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe and of course, happy dueling.